Uh, in 2018, the Jerome Avenue corridor experienced one of the largest rezonings in the history of New York City, spanning 93 blocks across the South Bronx and impacting 700 businesses and 93,000 residents. In response, Jobs First NYC, in partnership with the Children's Aid's Bronx Impact, a part of the Empire State Poverty Reduction Initiative, was invited by community stakeholders to develop a plan and build the infrastructure necessary to benefit from incoming economic development. 3 years later, Jobs First NYC is proud to help celebrate the launch of the Jerome Avenue Revitalization Collaborative, or as we like to call it, JARC. JARC's mission is to bring about inclusive economic growth and sustainability for local residents, employers, and workers impacted by Jerome Avenue rezoning. Today's presentation is one of three events, not only celebrating the launch of JARC, but really to address some of the community needs that we're currently seeing. We thank you all for being here with us today. And if you want to learn more about JARC, please visit us at www.jarcbx.com. And now I would love to hand it off to our moderator, Lisa Sorin, president of the Bronx Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you so very much, Roman, and good morning, everyone. It's bright and early, and we're here. You have an amazing panelist that is really going to be about informing you about this PPP and all that is the technical difficulties in trying to learn more about what this PPP means for our business. The Bronx has suffered because we are the least amount of businesses using this service, and there is so much abundance of information and availability of funds that today is about learning more about it, having your resources to make sure that you reach out, you share the information with other businesses. We want to make sure that all our Bronx businesses really survive this post-pandemic and know that there's so many resources available to you. I'm going to start giving you a little bit about the Bronx Chamber and our role over the course of the last year. The Bronx Chamber has always been about the empowerment of businesses throughout our borough, helping them stay in business, connect, do business to business, empower, and educate. Over the course of the last year, as you all absolutely know, the pandemic has taken a turn for what our businesses are and the impact that they have seen. Right now, it's estimated that we will probably end up losing, and this is a horrible number, close to, if not over 50% of our businesses through this pandemic. So what does that mean for the Bronx Chamber? We have really been working very hard for members, non-members to reach out, walk the corridors, reach out to our businesses and our organizational partners, a lot of which are here today, about education, about knowing that the services are available, that they have advocates, that we're working with our elected officials, and that we will get through this. The Bronx always has, and this is no different for us. The silver lining to this is that it has brought the Bronx, its unity, and the organizations that are offering services together. So it has united us about offering the services. If we don't have it, we share out to our partners that are here today. We have helped thousands of businesses over the course of the last year. We found that the digital divide has really hurt our Bronx businesses. We partnered with Univision, who was an amazing partner throughout all of this for education and outreach. One program that we're really pushing hard, and I have one of my specialists on, is the Small Business Resource Network that is available to anyone, free, member, not member, that really gives you a hand holding through the process of everything you will hear today and so many more referrals. We will put the link. We are available to you. We're available to our partner organizations. Our goal is to bring back the businesses that have suffered, bring back our commercial corridors, beat out the other boroughs, and showcase the fact that our small businesses are here to thrive. We were thriving and on an uphill trajectory, pre-pandemic, and we will get there again, working together. And I can go on forever. I'm passionate about the fact that we're here to save our businesses. If you have any questions, again, I have my specialist who will post our phone number and links for any information that you need, like all the partners that are here today. So this is about the PPP, which is the loans available through the federal government, round 2, which will, as you will list here, there's a lot of more opportunities for businesses. Keep in the back of your mind that the Bronx, out of all the boroughs, was the least amount of PPPs given. It is important, super important for you to understand that the Bronx has the availability and the monies. The focus is in our borough to make sure that every business has access to this money that will be free, and you will not have to pay it back if your documentation is correct. And again, all our partners and ourselves are here to assist you with that. I have the pleasure of introducing our panelists. And if you have any questions, keep in mind at the chat at the bottom of the screen, please feel free, put them on. I will be checking the chat and sharing them out so we can answer your questions as we go along, or we can wait at the end of each session. Our panelists for this morning, we have Stephanie Charles from Cleary, Gottlieb Fellow at Start Small, Think Big, and you're gonna hear some wonderful things about the service they provide. Pedro Estevez, who is the president of the United Auto Merchants Association, an association and group of businesses that were very much impacted by the zoning rechange. And he will share out some of the positives and negatives and how we're working together to get past it. We have John Frias from the Minority Business Program Manager for the Business Outreach Center Network. Xavier Gibbons, Business Developer Officer for Spring Bank. And we have Christophe, who's a Senior Director of Economic Development for the organization SoBro. So we welcome our panelists. They are experts, and this is about a conversation. So feel free, again, put your comments, your questions into the chat, and we are here to assist you. And we have some, oh, there we go. Okay, and we will get started. I am introducing Christophe, who will be providing you with all the information regarding the PPP. We'll have questions. And Christophe, I'm going to turn it over to you to share your knowledge on what PPP is and how this is going to help our small businesses in the borough.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I see that Lisa was afraid to pronounce my name incorrectly.
That's exactly right.
So it's Christophe Le-Gorju, and as Lisa said, I work at SoBro, an organization in South Bronx that has been around for almost 50 years, helping the community and the business to grow in the Bronx. I will go quickly through a presentation of the PPP, as we will have a debate after with a lot of questions about the Paycheck Protection Program. So what is a PPP? As it says, it's a Paycheck Protection Program. It's supposed to replace payroll for a certain period of time, and it's a loan that can be forgiven if you have the right paperwork, as Lisa said earlier. And the amount that you can apply for the PPP depends on your payroll. It's and your industry. If you are any industry but restaurant and hospitality, it's 2.5 months of payroll, and hospitality and restaurant are 3.5 for this second PPP. No, you will not need to pay back the loan as long as you use 60% of the loan to pay for payroll. And when we say payroll, that also include the way you pay yourself as a business owner.
Okay. If you, oh.
What would it cost me? It doesn't require collateral or personal guarantee. It also doesn't require a credit check. So it's really completely independent of your credit score. And if ever you have to pay back the loan, it's a 1% interest for 5 years. So you have 5 years to pay it back. Next. If that's how, this is the second draw of the PPP, and a lot of business didn't get access on the first draw of the PPP. So if that's your first draw, you can apply it as long as you have less than 500 employees. You can also apply as a sole proprietor, independent contractor, if you're on 1099, if you're a self-employed individual, if you are an immigrant and visa or green card, you also qualify. You don't have to be an American citizen to apply for the PPP. You can be a nonprofit, housing cooperative. There's actually, I don't think there's any barrier to apply unless you are a firearm organization or you're involved in, I think, pornography. Business must have been operating before February 2020. For the second draw loan, if that's the second time that you apply for the loan, you have to have less than 300 employees. And the most important part is you have to show a decrease of 25% in income in comparison to 2019, meaning you would have to compare one quarter of 2019 to a quarter equivalent in 2020 or the entire year. And if we're doing a pause in between slides, it's because we want to catch up with translation. The payroll cost, it's exactly what it says. It means payroll, but that includes salaries, commission, payment of cash tips. If you work in the hospitality, that's a lot of your pay. And note that every salary is up to $100,000. So you cannot get more than $100,000 in the PPP. And that's divided, that's 2.5 months of $100,000. You can also include the employee group healthcare benefit and insurance premium, and also 401k, sorry. Employee benefit can include costs for vacation, parental, family, medical, or sick leave. And for sole proprietor or LLC or S Corp, you can also apply. We will look at the Schedule C for sole proprietor, and if I'm correct, the Form 1120 for S Corp. Note that starting today, we have a new reform of the PPP. And if we speak about the Schedule C, until yesterday, when you apply with the Schedule C, you have to look at your net income after deduction. That's line 31 on the Schedule C. As of today, but we're still waiting for confirmation from SBA, and the calculation was modified. You will be able to use your gross income on line 7 to apply for PPP. And that's a big difference because a lot of business don't have, their net income is a lot of time negative because of deduction. Other eligible expenses, it's interest payment on mortgage obligation. Of course, not on your personal your house. It's on your business-owned building. You can also deduct rent, utilities.
Okay, I got it now.
And interest on other obligation. This aspect of refinancing a EIDL loan, if you desire to refinance an EIDL loan that you got last year because the interest is much lower, that's not something I advise. EIDL is a long-term loan at a very low interest, and you want to make sure you manage your cash flow correctly. You can also include a lot of expenses for the second row for PPE, for software or cloud computing. In other words, this is all the costs that happened because of the COVID that you didn't have before, that you needed to convert your business to be able to work remote. And also follow the rules and the regulations for protection of your employees. And in the case of restaurant, that's also the cost of expansion to build up an outside space. I'm not going to go in every detail of this. Note that you need to provide the payroll report for your employees, or the 1099 miscellaneous for contractor, or the Schedule C, or the Form 1120. there's a lot of different forms for payroll report. If you use a payroll company, they can provide that for you. If you use QuickBook, you can also print it for QuickBook. The point is you need to prove that you paid your employee and you use the PPP to pay your employees. Same thing for health insurance and retirement expenses. You will have to give a statement to support the payroll, the PPP, sorry. And not make sure that when you apply for the PPP, you keep all your paperwork. You don't want to, you want to keep that for 5 years. And as every loan for a business, you always need the same paperwork, meaning article of incorporation, business organization document, photo ID, you of course need to prove who you are. And for anybody owning 20% of the business or more, it's always the same thing for any CDA file lender and any banks. And of course, 2019 profit and loss statement, 2020 if you have it. It's not necessarily required, but you need 2019. Business tax return for partnerships, sole proprietor, S corps, LLC, any business that apply for the PPP must have filed the tax for 2019. For the second draw loan, if you apply for less than $150,000, you will just have to give the number showing that you have a 25% loss in income. If you apply for more than 150,000, you will have to show the paperwork proving that you have a loss of income. And that's for 1 quarter or for the year, depending of your situation. So am I eligible for loan forgiveness? You are if you use 60% of the fund to cover payroll, meaning payroll for your employee, payroll for yourself, if you pay yourself out of the profit of the business, and also like health and benefit cost, 60% of it. The 40% remaining can be used for utilities, rent, interest payment on your mortgage for your business. But as long as you qualify for 60% of payroll, then you will be forgiven. And also one very important point, you need to keep the same number of employees or meet certain exception. And if you have more questions concerning that rules, I advise that you contact one of us on this panel that will be able to help you further. For loan under 150,000K, the SBA is requiring a very simple application for loan forgiveness, and it's quite easy. One point also, you cannot decrease the compensation for employee by more than 25%. When do I need to start making payment? Borrowers are eligible for loan forgiveness for all of part of their loan. If you have to make payment, you will have to start the payment over a period of 5 years at 1% interest. And it starts 15 months after you receive your loan. It's 10 months after your 24 weeks covered period. If you already got the PPP on the first row, you need to apply for the forgiveness at least a minimum 10 months after you got the first loan disbursement. And it will be the same thing so far for the second PPP. So if you applied last year for the PPP and you haven't applied for forgiveness, I suggest that you do so. There's no point of keeping liabilities on your book.
But thank you for that. I know that that's a lot of information. And for those who have not applied or are unsure of applying, so, you know, who do you go to first? Do you go to your bank? Do you go to one of our panelists? Do you go to the chamber? I mean, what's the easiest way for the small businesses to start this process? It can really seem overwhelming, but once you start the work, it really is not. What would you suggest about where do you start?
You can contact any of us here. We have John Frias from Bronx, we have Spring.bank and myself. personally, I'm not a lender, but I will help you with the loan application. And you can apply, of course, with your bank if your bank has the PPP. There's a lot of lender on the market right now, and a lot of CDFI that can really help you. There's also one point, starting today, the PPP application is reserved for business with less than 20 employees. So call the Chamber of Commerce, call BOG, call SoBro. You can call any of us, send us an email. And I think at the end of this presentation, we will send everybody information via email. And we can assist you apply for the PPP.
And so one question that keeps coming up, what if you're not a US citizen? That seems to be a big conversation.
You can apply. There's no rules for citizenship. You can apply. I have some business that are on 1099, that are on visa. They can apply for the PPP.
Right. And I'm glad you said that because, again, and I guess I'll be saying this throughout our presentation, is that a lot of businesses in the Bronx have not applied. This is a big program. It seems very scary. People hear federal and state and banking and IRS. Let me assure a lot of the businesses that are here and information that you can share out. Yes, it seems overwhelming. It's not impossible. It is very important that you take advantage of this. The whole purpose behind this program is really about helping our businesses stay alive, pay for your employees, get our recovery, which is the words we want to continue to use. We are in a recovery mode, and you know, the experts on this panel and across our borough. The next 2 weeks are critical because you're absolutely right. Almost 90% of all the businesses in the Bronx are 20 or under employees, actually 10 and under. So this second round is really huge for our businesses, especially in our borough. Something is in the chat. So one more question, then I'm gonna have everyone else introduce themselves so our guests here know who's on and the questions that they can ask. Can you give employees bonuses or hazard pay with this money?
It will have to match your payroll from previous to COVID.
Okay, so there's options. It's just asking the right questions. Another thing that I want to tell our guests here today is that sometimes your accounting ways are challenging, right? Everybody does their accounting in their own way. Small mom and pops tend to take care of their own books. That does not stop you from being able to fix your books and apply for this loan. I can't reiterate that enough. Christophe, thank you so much. Now I will give an opportunity for our panelists to take a few minutes, brief minutes, because I want to make sure we keep everybody on time and allow our audiences to ask questions, should they have any. Stephanie Charles, start small, think big. If you want to introduce yourself, I'm welcome this morning.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Christophe, for a very informative presentation. My name is Stephanie Charles. I'm an attorney at Start Small, Think Big. We are a nonprofit organization working with small businesses, primarily in the state of New York and in the state of California, but also for certain matters all across the US. We work to pair small business owners with the appropriate expert advice when it comes to financial management, when it comes to the legal infrastructure of their businesses, and when it comes to marketing services. We do so by pairing them with outside volunteers, working with them internally with our staff over the course of either a 1 year client engagement, all for free for eligible applicants who go through our intake process. They work with us over the course of that year. They can always reapply for services at the end of their year, so long as they're eligible, and access these services during their year engagement management. For folks who have priority issues that have come up as a result of COVID-19, we offer more limited one-off consultations as well. That includes for folks who are looking to understand the application requirements for the PPP, understand PPP forgiveness as well, but also for other issues that have been precipitated by the pandemic, including, for example, commercial leasing issues. I'll include the link to our application materials in the chat. I'll also include the link to our programming for webinars for folks who are interested in attending those. They're always free, always open to the public. And I'll include the link to our COVID-19 resource hub, where we are working with others to try to gather a lot of that critical information and share it and make it widely available to folks who are looking to consider their options and weigh their financing options in particular when it comes to navigating the pandemic. So I'll pause here. I'll look forward to participating in the panel along with our other guests. But for now, I'll pass it along to others for them to introduce themselves.
John Ferris, Minority Business Program Manager of Business Outreach Center.
Good morning, Roman. Thank you. Like Roman said, my name is John Frias. I am the Minority Business Program Manager for the Business Outreach Center, and I'm here today representing our CDFI lending arm called BOC Capital CDFI. As someone who grew up and was raised in the Bronx, went to school in the Bronx, and parents had businesses in the Bronx and still have businesses in the Bronx, it really is important to me to make sure that I do the most I can for my fellow Bronxites, which is why I work for BOC. Last year, BOC did 375 loans for $5.5 million, and $1.1 million went to over 100 businesses in Upper Manhattan in the Bronx. And I'm really proud to say that this year, right now, we're at 6.7 million in loans, 320, and I mean, the impact is there, but there's still so many more that need to be reached. And like Lisa pointed out earlier, a lot of businesses don't even know that they are eligible. I still have businesses today calling, asking, oh, I thought I wasn't eligible because I didn't have employees, not understanding that them as a self-employed individual can apply as well. I look forward to going out and answering all of your questions with regards to the PPP. Things change fast, it's changing every day, and having all these people, all these experts on here to be able to talk about it is a really good resource. So with that said, I'll pass it on to the next person.
I want to apologize, Roman. My mouse battery died as I was trying to get back onto talk about technical difficulties, right? So I apologize. Thank you, John, so much. Can everybody now hear me and see me? I apologize for that chaos. Okay, our next panelist.
Good morning. I had some also technical difficulties to join this panelists. I would like to say that the automotive community is having a very, very difficult time to apply for this PPP. There are some issues that they are constantly calling me because most of them don't hold or do not have a payroll. Therefore, automatically, it's a 60% right there that they cannot apply for. Is there any opportunity that I could relate the message to them of what else can they do to apply for the PPP, or how can they align themselves to be eligible for these loans? Because you have to understand, automotive businesses, especially those very small automotive businesses, that is what makes the automotive industry here and the Latino minorities, they have the owner is the employee. Maybe they have another one or two mechanics that work, and a percentage, which is very, very common. They cannot pay the rent. They cannot maintain the business open. What they do is they rent a space or they lift to one or two different people and they share the profit. And that's what they do. In other words, they do not work for them, but they work in their business. That is something that is very uncomfortable to say, that it looks like they are under the shadow. No, they pay the taxes, but they pay the taxes individually, not as a payroll or as having employees. That is a difficult time that we have coping with it and guiding these people. I'm going to have to get more information, especially for the SBA. And I'm also going to reach out to SoBro to see what else can we do, or what can we do in order to help this automotive community that is actually really starving for funds, because the rezoning, it was one thing that really did a lot of damage. Now is the COVID-19. So therefore, I have my hands sometimes tied up because I have to have information. One other thing that I like to point out was that I had COVID myself. It hit me really, really very hard, and he have left me with some limited capacity to function. And I would like to pass on what we have in our hands to other agencies that they can reach out to me so we could help those people.
Thank you so much, Pedro. Pedro brought up a really important part regarding the fact that there's the fewer employees and the accounting, which is something that we were speaking of before. I see that John Frias from the Business Outreach Center has counselors that can assist, as I am sure Spring.bank and some of our other partners. But I also understand that with the new PPP regulations for very small businesses, those qualifications, now the automotive industry seems to have a better opportunity of being able to access the loan, Pedro. So I totally suggest that you reach out to SoBro, to John Frias here at the chamber, because you're gonna have much more opportunity. But I want that question directed to our attorney from Start Small, Think Big, and see if you have a comment regarding how legally the automotive industry can access this information.
Sure. Thank you very much. And I really echo what you've said so far. I think, a big picture here, when we're thinking about the PPP loan, it is a loan program, it is forgivable, but before being forgivable, rather than being just a grant program, it is a loan program. And what it means is that there are specific requirements, as you know, obviously for qualifying for the loan, and also requirements for how you spend the funding that you receive in order to have that amount be forgivable, but also more generally in order to be in compliance with the requirements that are set out in the loan documents that you sign on to. So to respond to the questions and the comments that were raised, it is definitely a big issue that fundamentally the PPP program, as it's designed and as it's been rolled out, is meant to replace and compensate and support payroll payment, as Christophe mentioned earlier today. With the qualifiers, obviously, of this is a very quickly changing program. There are new rules as of today in terms of limiting access to the PPP to small businesses with less than 20 employees, but also with additional changes that are pending, particularly with regards to folks who do not have their who can't access traditional payroll records and instead have been relying so far on net profit, because that has been the equivalent really so far for people who do not have traditional payroll records rather that they can access. It has been to rely instead on net profit that their business has generated for the year that they are considering, usually either 2019 or 2020. That's been the case for independent contractors who can access the loan on their own. It's been the case for sole proprietors. Now, there are changes, as we mentioned, in terms of whether we will be able to look at gross receipt rather than net profit in order to calculate the loan amount that folks can access. There's rules that we'll just have to wait, and hopefully they will come out soon in order for us to provide more precise information. But I would say, think of this program as a loan program where there are risks and liabilities and obligations on your part if you're accessing it. Think of it as a program that's meant to cover payroll cost, and think of realize that the way in which you calculate payroll cost so far has been very tied to how salaries are taxed, which is why we're relying heavily on tax information that you are providing. But realize it's a very changing and dynamic piece, particularly for sole proprietors, independent contractors, particularly for folks essentially who do not have traditional payroll records.
Thank you, Stephanie. And to follow up with that, we have one of our bankers and experts, Xavier Givens from Spring Bank. Xavier, give us an introduction to Spring Bank for those who may not be aware of your services and the bank itself. And maybe you can address some of this while introducing yourself. And thank you for your patience as we're going around with all the technical difficulties. And I'd love to be able to hear your expertise on all of this, especially as it relates to sole proprietorship, because I see a few comments in our chat. The floor is all yours. You are muted.
All right, thank you. Wonderful. Once again, good morning. Thank everyone for attending. Lisa, thank you for the introduction. My name is Xavier Givens. I'm from Spring Bank. Business Development Officer and Loan Officer, specifically on the PPP loans. Just to go into quick detail, follow up with Stephanie and Pedro were speaking about, let's be clear that each business is different, meaning that the business entity type and the rules that are associated. One of the things that we can offer at Spring Bank is that we're now open to process for all businesses. Our specific focus is definitely New York City. Our headquarters is in the Bronx, first bank to headquarter in the Bronx in over 25 years. So I included the link within the chat that we can definitely look into each situation one at a time to be able to analyze. I'm actually quite familiar with the business model type Pedro speaks of, meaning that you have a owner of the business who's also a working mechanic, and then may have other mechanics under him that are normally 1099. If that's the case, the 1099 people will be able to apply for their own individual application, and then the owner would be able to apply for his own based on what he pays himself. So that's something that, like I said, each one is more detailed as you go into it, but it's definitely something that we can look at and take the time to analyze and to see the type of funding that we can get. I just want to also mention that I have my colleague with me, Director of Consumer Lending, Melanie Stern, who's been working with a lot of different nonprofits and just within the Bronx community on behalf of Spring Bank for quite a while. So I just want to give her a chance to speak on more of the services that the bank covers for the community and more, maybe a little bit more about how we're covering PPP.
Great, thanks, Javier. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, very briefly, Spring Bank was created to serve local businesses, small businesses, and consumers in the Bronx and throughout New York City, particularly individuals and businesses that might not be well served by larger banks. So we are very mission focused. We're a double bottom line institution. What that means is we're as concerned about our mission as we are about profit. And just a couple of quick points about PPP. Our process, and this is true of Bach and others, is online and automated. It actually is not a complicated process to apply for PPP in terms of actually working your way through our platform. It gives you directions as you go. And the paperwork is not that onerous. You have to show, as Christophe said, that you've had a reduction in revenue quarter to quarter or year to year. We take a signed P&L. So you know, it literally can be a one-page document in which you outline what your revenues were for any one quarter or year to year, assign it, and we're good to go with that. Payroll, you have to obviously show some documentation with regard to payroll. Other than that, it's, you know, basically your license, your organizing documents, and generally you should be good to go. One caveat with that in this round, as distinct from the first round, is the SBA is being much more picky. Last round, people applied, they got through the process, pretty simple. This year, they're matching information with a lot of databases. So we do have businesses that do get caught up if EINs don't match and other stuff. But an advantage to working with a smaller bank and a CDFI is you're not going to fall into some rabbit hole where you're put on hold and you never hear back. We are working assiduously to follow up on any loan that gets caught up in the SBA rabbit hole. So you can rest assured you will get Xavier or somebody on the phone who will explain to you where your application is at and what we're doing to try to move it through the process.
Thank you, Melanie. And I've had the pleasure of working very closely with you, and your services are incredible. So there's an interesting question about what is the real difference between working with a nonprofit CDFI and a bank, a traditional bank? What should our small businesses be looking for? What may or may not be more convenient for them? Xavier, I'll start with you, and maybe we can move into Christophe and John.
Sure. So biggest advantage of working with a CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution, is that we are here specifically to focus on the smaller businesses, and if it's personal side, to focus on the individual consumers that are normally left off or taken advantage of by larger financial products. Specifically with PPP, any of the business people here that have gone with the larger banks, you'll notice there's no actual people, meaning that everything is, everything is online, everything is an automated process. We do everything, I guess you can call it the old world way, where we have the portal, but we actually work step by step, hand in hand with our clients. So through, you know, we initiate the process, you go through the link, you put your information in, you start filling out, but then you get to certain points where you get stuck. Somebody like myself will actually reach out and say, hey, you're almost there. What do you need to get this finished? And specifically, because this is the area that we take the most pride in helping, is the people that are left behind, is that we go out and reach out to them. So for people that Pedro was speaking about, or just anyone in general who, even if they did not receive the first round, and they still can apply for the first round in this round. Our doors are open to have that type of individual service. We would hope that they would continue on and bank with us and open up operating accounts, but there's no string attached here. We just want to make sure that they get the funding that they desperately need to maintain open doors in this community and keep us vibrant. So.
I'm going to add up some.
Xavier.
So I want to also give an answer to Pedro to the question for the auto business. To better explain how the auto business works, a lot of the auto business are either LLC, sole proprietor, and pay themselves out of the business without a payroll. So the business itself already can apply for the PPP. Then a lot of their employees are either contractor or employee on payroll, or sometimes both, or sometimes only contractor. If they are on payroll, of course, the business can apply for them. If they are not on payroll, but on 1099, they can all apply individually. And same thing, they can contact Springbank, they can contact John at Book, or they can contact myself, and we'll be more than happy to help them, assist them with the process of applying for the PPP. And as Lisa said, and also it's quite easy. It's not that complicated to apply. The process is it's all online, and it's quite easy.
John, did you want to add a couple of words to that?
Yeah, first I wanted to echo what Xavier said about Spring Bank, which is a community bank, and CDFIs. The difference between us and the major banks is we're definitely a hands-on approach. A lot of our business owners, they don't know the names of all the documents that they need. And kind of like Xavier said, what happens is clients fill out our inquiry form, which is both in English and in Spanish, and we automatically connect them with a loan counselor who is immediately on the phone with them, teaching them how to get on Zoom, sharing screens with them, going through their documents with them to help them fill out their applications. It's an arduous process, but that's the way that we're getting our people what they need and getting them access. That's probably the biggest disconnect between the bigger banks and the community. That distant approach. I've had clients call me and say that they applied with their major bank, but they haven't heard from them. They don't know what's going on. That's not the case with us. You immediately get someone's email, they call you, you have their phone, and you have access to someone to speak to. And I've had people tell me it's amazing to be able to talk to somebody. I'd just like to add too, I don't know if this was clear, Christophe, you did say it, but the calculation for 3.5 for restaurants is only for the second draw. Xavier, can you double check on that?
That's
First draw
correct, yeah.
is still being calculated at 2.5. I just want to make sure that restaurants understood that if they didn't apply for the first round, first draw, they're still being calculated at 2.5. That's right, Christophe?
Yeah, I believe so. And I also
Cool.
want to add up something that you say, and about CDFI, like Springbank and Book and other like TrueFund. The goal of this organization is not to treat you as a number. They want you to get that money, and they will make sure that you get it. So they might be on your back actually to make sure that you complete the paperwork and you fill up the application.
We chase people down. And
exactly. But the goal is to help the community. Yes.
And it's not only to get them the money, Christophe, it's to make sure that the money is forgiven. We tell people all the time, we want to make sure that we're calculating this correctly because we do not want to saddle you with debt. Even though the interest rate is low, even though it's only 60 months, that's not the goal of what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is trying to get you the money that you need to continue operating and not be saddled with the debt later.
And I have to echo that 100 times over. SBA has, especially this time around, is really working hard to make sure that everything is forgiven. Proper record keeping is top notch, but you don't need to be a rocket scientist to do it. It really is about organizing. So I have one question and then a comment that maybe somebody can answer for me, and Pedro would probably be able to answer that. We keep referencing Spanish and English, but we all know the languages in the Bronx are the United Nations. Talk to me a little bit about, and I guess I'll reference one to Pedro to let me know what other languages other than Spanish we are challenged with to be able to supply the information, outreach to them, and make them feel comfortable. When I say them, the various languages that we are facing, and how do we go about assisting these businesses? And I'll get to the second one, but let's start with that. And I'll start with my bankers, CDFIs, and then I would like to hear from Pedro for him to tell me, other than Spanish, where the challenges have been on the language part. Because I want to believe that because our immigrant population is so large, that we're I'm Puerto Rican, so I understand the Spanish English, right? But there's a lot of languages in our borough. So how do we go about assisting them? Yeah,
Do you
yes.
mind? Do you mind if I start? At Bach, we are blessed to also be. We have about 50, 60 employees, but we're also the United Nations in our organization. I myself speak 3 languages, Spanish, English, and Korean. We have staff members that speak French for our West African community. We have Chinese speakers, Tibetan, Hindi. We don't have Urdu. We have Bengalis or Bengala. So we offer services in all of those languages. It's in fact, it's part of our inquiry form. Which language do you prefer, so that we can connect you to the right counselor. That's the best way that we can do it. Sometimes when we don't have that ability because someone's workload is too heavy, we assist on the back end. Someone collects, someone puts it together, and then communication is done by the person that can communicate with that particular group. But it is a blessing to be able to do that.
Thank you. Xavier, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, sure. Real quickly, our situation at Spring is similar to John with Bach, that we have several people who are multilingual, bilingual, not as quite as diverse as Bach, but we're getting there. I just find I've had experiences with clientele. Well, I'll use Google Translate just to give the full description of the documentation that's needed. I've used that for many languages. And then when you're dealing with like tax returns, business documents, it's almost a universal language. So just as long as you can incorporate Google Translate, which is what we've done, and just really put in the personal effort to try to reach the client and try to be understanding, and that's what's been effective for us.
Thank you, Xavier. Pedro, other than Spanish, talk to me a little bit about your industry and where the challenges have been, other than the ability to apply, because I think the panelists here have been really good about explaining the fact that a lot of your members to your association now have a great ability to be able to apply for these loans, which is fantastic. Is there another language barrier? What are your challenges as it relates to what we're discussing?
Well, I could tell you a couple of more challenges beside the language. The language that most prominent that on our membership is Spanish, and they all understand a little bit of English, but the most challenging item there is the internet. Most of them don't even know how to use a computer. If they have a computer, they have maybe somebody in the family that comes over and helps them out. And that is one of the challenges, to connect themselves in the internet. We are working on that on a pilot program, which is going to be teaching them how to use a computer and also installing a computer in the business. So that is the other challenge, which I'm going to reach out to the 2 panelists, which is Xavier on Spring Bank, and the other gentleman that are having problem with my Zoom connection. I'm right now I'm speaking on like blind, because I don't have any information on my screen. So what I'm going to do is the 2 panelists, Xavier, that I promised him that was going to stop by the bank, and the other gentleman that I would like to send him an email so I could go and visit him at his office, so we could connect. And what I will do is I will visit these people one by one, get all the information, and I have most of the information on my database, which we have information for over 1,500 businesses that we have helped out throughout the years. So this is what I will do. We'll be the intermediary, and then we're going to go between them and the application, so we could get all the information and forward it and be the link to these loans. So everybody will have an opportunity, because we have a very challenging community, because what they do is all physical work. The owners are the mechanics. And if they are working, they cannot go over and fill out these applications. They never had the opportunity to learn how to use the computer, because everything is work to maintain the rhythm of keeping the business afloat and providing for their families. Those are the challenges that we have. But like I said, I will reach out to them. We'll be the middle, the bridge, like we call, the bridge between the community and the agencies. And then we're going to help out, which I'm going to go over and visit Xavier and continue, because we have the information already, continue on going forward and get this information to them.
Thank
Okay.
you, Pedro. And I have to agree with you. One of the challenges we found over the course of the last year was the fact that the Hispanic community, immigrant community, had little to no access, or the use of our digital divide is probably the largest here in our borough. I will say this as a plug for the Bronx Chamber: we have the specialists who are going door to door, both speak Spanish. We are offering assistance to help them fill out paperwork, offering them how to get online and know how to use some of the social media platforms and assisting them. We are focusing on the Jerome area, and you will be seeing them soon. Ana Reyes and Francisco Aguilar, who will be out assisting. It's a free service, and where you help, I will also commit to reaching out to Univision to run a story on this so that the Hispanic community can have more information. We are running short on time, so I'm going to ask if there is anyone within our audience who has any questions.
Yeah, if you have any questions, please raise your hand using the raise hand feature, and we'll call on you.
Perfect. I know that John has a comment that he would like to speak about the digital divide, and then we will work to Michael Nixon.
Thank you, Lisa. First of all, Pedro, John Frias here from BAC. I will send you an email because those Jerome Avenue mechanics are near and dear to my heart. I grew up in that area, running up and down with my father. My father was a bodeguero, so I know that area really well. The digital divide in the Bronx was the biggest shock for me in the first round of the PPP. As Pedro mentioned, people don't know how to use the computer, but what I did notice is that they all know how to use their phones. And if you can teach them how to do what they need to do via DocuSign or reaching out to them using social media platforms, as Lisa just mentioned. I even helped somebody fill out a hair salon in the Bronx, fill out a PPP application and receive a PPP using Instagram video chat. So the whole point is that you need to go above and beyond to cross that digital divide, and then not only that, but follow through afterwards to help them bridge that digital divide so that they won't have that problem anymore. Thank you, Lisa, for letting me speak.
Thank you, John. Michael Nixon, you had a question, and then that will be followed by David. And then I really want to respect everyone's time. And we will be cutting this, but know that the panelists are available. All the information is in the chat. And of course, afterwards, you can reach out to any one of us. This is not about competition. This is about unity and making sure that our businesses survive. So we are all here to jump in and figure out how to help you. Michael.
Yeah, these are just comments particularly directed to the businesses and business owners that are on the call. We've heard a number of the speakers say that it's an easy process, but it's particularly easy for people who've been involved with PPP for, from last year into today. And so I say that only because instead of looking at PPP on one's own and getting intimidated, perhaps, please reach out to the people who are on the call, folks from BachNet, from Spring.bank, from SoBro, who can really assist. It's easy for these folks, so please connect into them rather than try to do it on your own, say, this isn't so easy, and then throw up your hands. Couple of other things to point out is this call was planned some weeks ago, but today was the kickoff for PPP for only businesses with 20 and fewer employees for the next 2 weeks. And I think the government has recognized that, especially in the first draw PPP last year, that small businesses and minority-owned businesses were terribly underserved. And this is an opportunity or an attempt to really correct for that. So please take advantage of this opportunity. It's beyond your company, it's beyond your family, it's beyond your business, because the communities where these small businesses have been clustered have been hurt terribly by the decline of businesses where they serve. Bear in mind also that this, what is referred to as the second round or second draw PPP, is only good through, currently anyway, through March 31st. So the window of opportunity as it stands right now is not going to be open terribly long. So please take advantage of this opportunity. This is an opportunity to bring capital into your business, to help support your business, to keep your business going, to keep your employees going, to keep everyone's family going. So it's critically important. And then one last plug for JARC. As it was just mentioned, a lot of folks are not comfortable with the internet or computers, but most people can use their phones. And JARC, for the businesses along the corridor, has a WhatsApp group, which is designed to help disseminate information. So please take advantage of that so that you can find out about not just this, but all the other information that becomes available. So thanks so much for letting me speak a bit. I'll turn the floor over. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
I want to quickly add something to this. Because the PPP last year was a bit confusing originally. Some business didn't qualify, didn't qualify. Then right now, every business should think this way. I probably qualify, I probably can get a bit of money from the PPP. So in any case, contact John, Xavier, or myself, because there's always a way. Every business right now qualify for PPP, and if that's $500 or $10,000, it doesn't matter. It's money you won't have to pay back.
Very well said, Christophe.
Yeah, and if I can just quickly add something in closing, just because we've been talking about the PPP, but obviously there are other programs as well, the EIDL, for example. And I want to just one very clear distinction between the two. Obviously, the fact that the EIDL is not a forgivable grant program is a big one. Another one is that the EIDL is administered directly by the SBA. For the PPP, the SBA is putting out forms, the application form, the loan forgiveness form, etc. But ultimately, an applicant would be using the forms that are used by a lender. It could be the same one that the SBA is using. It could be a different one that's aligned with the SBA form, the Small Business Administration form, but that's specific to that bank. And I think that's really where having a CDFI, having a bank like the ones that have been on this panel in your corner and helping you out is key. Ultimately, you're going to be dealing directly with them, using their form, applying through them, and not with the SBA directly. That's a big distinction with other programs like the EIDL that a lot of people are relying on. And I just want to make sure that that's clear to.
Oh, you muted yourself somehow.
Oh,
there you go. Now we can hear you.
Sure. So that's really all that I wanted to say in closing, really, and really emphasizing that work with your lender.
Thank you, Stephanie. David, you've been patiently waiting. You're unmuted. I'm going to ask that you unmute, and thank you for being so patient.
Thank you for having me and doing this We're a client of Spring Bank, and I believe you guys are pronouncing it differently, but I call it BIC of New York. And we've received now both the first and second draw. My question is about forgiveness. I am a restaurant owner, and we're not going to qualify because of the full-time employee equivalent. We didn't rehire. I had 21 employees before COVID, and now we have 7 or 8. So we're going to fall below that 60% threshold. However, there's a safe harbor, I believe it's number 2 or B, that states that if the government mandated that your business would do business in a different way, basically restaurants' capacities has been, a ongoing and variable issue since my first draw, and now continuing through the second draw. Has anyone specifically used the safe harbor for forgiveness? And what sort of documentation are they looking for? I mean, it sounds almost ridiculous. Like you turn on the news, it happened. But I'm asking that, and so far, even from Spring Bank, who's the PPP lender, I haven't gotten the answer that I'm looking for. And now that we just received our second draw, there's a lot of money that I am potentially indebted for, even at a low interest rate. So before we burn through it, I want to make sure that it's going to be forgiven.
Hey, David, yeah, it's Melanie. I apologize. I don't know the answer to that, but we will figure it out. So, yeah, I'd be curious to know if anybody else on the call does. But
and most restaurants that you guys deal with are going to be asking the same question.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So, yeah, I'd love to hear if other people have the answer, but regardless, if you don't mind shooting me and Xavier an email, we'll follow
Absolutely.
up.
So I have a comment to that one, but Stephanie, did you have something to add to that? No? Okay.
I did not have something to add to that, just to clarify that, for loans that are, I don't know if that's your specific situation, but for loans below $50,000, that's not something that will be taken into account. If we're looking at beyond that amount, that becomes a little bit more complex. So I'll defer to others on the panel who may have dealt with that directly.
Fantastic. Christophe, I see you unmuted. Did you have a statement?
Yeah, and in concerning if your employees don't come back to work, technically, then you need a proof of why they didn't come back to work. They need to send you a letter, and technically, they have to go back to work. They cannot go on unemployment if they don't come back to work when you get a PPP. Even if they don't work, you actually have to pay them and use the PPP to pay them, unfortunately. And if they don't qualify for unemployment neither.
I think the downside to that, to your point, Christophe, and please anybody can correct me, is the fact that restaurants were shut down twice over. So if you're speaking to a restaurant issue, unfortunately, it's kind of out of their control because it was the governor who shut them down. But I will say this, we are now at the federal level looking very closely, and I'm sure everybody on here knows that the Restaurant Act has been attempted to be pushed through for the last 2 rounds at the federal level. If it is expected to pass this time around, and that is a massive amount of money for restaurants that have had your problem, David, as far as meeting the debt that you have incurred due to the shutdown, pause, back and forth, rent and bills. So that will be amazing news for all restaurants. And we will here at the Chamber, as I'm sure my partners on this call, will keep our restaurants in the loop, because if that does go through, our restaurants will be seeing a huge assistance and financially a huge boost to making sure that we don't lose any more businesses in our borough.
Also, I will add up that you should apply for the PPP anyway as a restaurant because rules change all the time.
Yeah.
And there's a rules because as a restaurant, you were forced to close that apply to, and you can prove that obviously. So I would apply for the PPP. You have 10 months from now to apply for the forgiveness. The law is going to change. The worst of it, you get a loan at 1% interest and you won't get better with the bank. So I would apply even if you think you don't qualify for forgiveness. This is not an issue right now. Apply for it and let's deal with the forgiveness in 10 months because it's going to change again.
Thank
And
you.
I absolutely agree with that because we did it. We went for the second round without having first round forgiven for that. And everybody that I speak to that's a restaurant owner that's not doing it, I kind of tell them there is no downside. Really, you can even just hold the money and give it back if you're scared. But at some point, it's going to run out. Anyway,
Very good
thank you,
advice,
everyone.
David. And I see the silver lining coming in at the end of all of this. And we will make sure on the advocacy side, the chamber really is trying to keep its finger on the pulse on the political and federal, state, and local level to make sure that you are informed as to all these bills that are being passed that will either hurt or definitely support your business. We are going to start wrapping up. So I'm going to ask my panelists very short 10 seconds of closing statement to our members and our audience who have been so wonderful in sticking around and listening to all this super important information. Christophe, I will start with you for your 10 seconds. And the countdown begins.
So my 10 seconds is call us, call me or call anybody else. We are here to help you.
Thank you, Christophe. John.
I'm just glad that everybody here is coming together to help out the Bronx. I do want to thank David because he brought up a very important thing that's happening. I don't know if Xavier's experiencing the same thing, but there are lots of businesses in the Bronx, especially Spanish-speaking businesses, that are fearful of applying for the second round because they haven't received forgiveness yet. One does not have to do with the other. Apply for the second round, especially if you used all that money from the first round. You're eligible to apply for the second round. And reach out to one of us.
Thank you, John. Stephanie, closing remarks?
Definitely echoing what everyone said, call us all. I want to stress that, as you pointed out, in fact, Lisa, that the rules are very quickly changing. So be sure that you have the latest information available, be it by checking the SBA website. Part of what I understand they're aiming to do this time around is to actually make the website more navigable. So make sure that you know the latest and connect with all of us who are also working to keep track of the latest so that you know what's going on. And I thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Xavier, your closing remarks.
Yes, once again, just echo everyone. There's opportunity here. There's no competition. Just reach out, get the ball rolling. Don't be fearful that number one, that the loan is connected to your personal finances. It is completely separate. It's not going to affect if you're trying to buy a home or you're trying to do something else for yourself. I find it be common that people run away for fear of it's going to affect their personal finances. There is no recourse, there's no consequence in reaching out, and you have people that will help you and walk you through. The money's there for us to take advantage.
Very, very good point. Pedro, closing remarks.
I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the panelists for such important information. And Xavier and John, I will appreciate if you get in contact with me. There is a lot of people that need help that I know that through you, I think that we could accomplish a very successful and fruitful outcome to these small businesses that desperately need your help. Thank you very much, panelists.
Thank
Thank you, Pedro. There's an email in your inbox already.
And before I turn it over to the man of the hour, Mr. Jackson, who started this conversation, I personally want to say thank you for the opportunity to allow me to moderate this exceptional panel. We are here to assist in every language. The Bronx will get through this. The Bronx Chamber is here to help. If one of us doesn't know the answers, we will figure it out for you. This is what we're here about. So again, thank you, panelists. You're amazing, informational, and I really look forward to continuing the work. And I continue to be a super proud JARC member.